Majority Report with Sam Seder. It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, May 3rd, 2018. My name is Michael Brooks on a Michael Thursday. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, Gabriel Debenedetti from New York Magazine. We're talking about, how Bernie Sanders is quietly building a digital media empire, its implications for a possible run in 2020, and for the cause of left politics and independent media. Rudy Giuliani doesn't seem to be helping. We'll get to that. The White House has replaced one of its attorneys with an attorney for Bill Clinton during his investigations. Iowa legislators have just passed one of the most restrictive abortion reproductive violation laws in the country. A new Democratic aligned group is hoping that Democrats will play the same game that Republicans did to block the seating of Justice Garland. And Democrats are bullish on winning the House in 2018, but Nancy Pelosi is Speaker. Not so sure about that. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif says that Iran will not renegotiate the nuclear deal. And Bibi Netanyahu is promising new documents from the disco era that will explain why we should get out of it. I'm just kidding on that one. Ex-lobbyist claims that foreign governments helped plan Pruitt trip to Australia as the cascade of allegations and conflicts of interest, accusations, and stories about Pruitt continue at a rapid pace. And Cambridge Analytica has filed for bankruptcy. Simple data points there as their business vanishes. And the United States has released its first Guantanamo detainee and sent him to Saudi Arabia, the first in the Trump era. And the United States has returned smuggled Hobby Lobby artifacts back to Iraq. It's a bizarre story. Just one of the many smaller crimes out of the massive crimes that we have committed against that country. Thank you. So we're here. It's a full team. Minus hello, obviously. Matt is here. Jamie's here. Brendan is here. Good day to all.
Good day.
So I'm perfectly honest. I really haven't followed. I haven't watched any of Stormy Daniels' interviews in full. The biggest interesting sort of data point for me in this whole Stormy Daniels thing is obviously new Ivanka material. But I've always held out, two things. I mean, one is that, yeah, it's pretty funny. And two, there is I think very small, and people are still maybe overly excited about this, but there is like an Al Capone scenario here where this is the relatively marginal thing that nets Trump. Now, I would say the chances of that are like infinitesimal, but it is a real thing, and it is happening. And Rudy Giuliani has emerged from his crypt and he was on last night with Sean Hannity, and he is not helping.
Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000, I mean, which is going to turn out to be perfectly legal. That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did. Yeah. There's no campaign finance law.
Zero.
So the president,
just like Sean.
So this decision was made by
everybody. Everybody was nervous about this from the very beginning. I wasn't. I knew how much money Donald Trump put into that campaign. I said 130,000. He's going to do a couple of checks for 130,000. When I heard Cohen's retainer of 35,000, when he was doing no work for the president, I said, but that's how he's repaying. That's how he's repaying it, with a little profit and a little margin for paying taxes for Michael.
But do you know the president didn't know about this? I believe that's what
he didn't
Michael
know about
said.
the specifics of it, as far as I know. But he did know about the general arrangement that Michael would take care of things like this, like I take care of things like this for my clients.
Well, I believe the last part. I'm sure that all of these people have taken care of a lot of things for their clients. Working it backwards, it's very funny to see Sean Hannity, who is a foreclosure profiteer and very successful media propagandist, but has a very, 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 very limited intellectual bandwidth, and getting confronted with new information, which even he can kind of see, like, you say it's totally kosher, but it doesn't sound kosher because it contradicts every single thing that Michael Cohen and Donald Trump have said about this, including Donald Trump a couple of months ago on Air Force One saying he knew nothing about it and he didn't do it and there was no money from him, and you'd have to ask Michael Cohen. And that was where Giuliani was like, hey, well, I mean, first of all, as I think it was Brendan pointed out, paid in installments, which is interesting move for a self-proclaimed billionaire. And he just might not have known the specific details of a porn star getting paid off. But
he is turning over the tables in the swamp.
I mean, and also so basically, I mean, I could see, I guess the legal angle they'll pursue is that there was no contribution. This is a private matter. This isn't campaign money. I mean, it's obvious the case they're setting up here. But, I mean, you could just, I think Michael Aventi or whoever that guy is who represents Stormy Daniels is like, well, no, in reality, this is a campaign contribution. Literally, like, this contribution from Michael Cohen to pay off Stormy Daniels benefits Donald Trump's campaign. And then, in Giuliani's words, he funneled money back to him, which is a great word choice. If I ever have a consigliere on national television saying that I didn't commit financial wrongdoing, I definitely want them to use the phrase funneled money through, because that really zeroes in on the fact that there obviously was no financial misdeeds here.
Dude, funneling rules.
Funneling does a rule. I agree with that. But I don't know if it's the word choice that you want from your attorney who's saying that you didn't do anything on national television. Even Sean Hannity was able to grasp that.
That's a good gig if you're Michael Cohen, right? You just sit on your ass and write checks to porn stars and then get paid back a small profit over time.
I mean, I think that would be the best explanation of understanding the type of law that Michael Cohen could possibly practice if you've ever seen him do a television interview.
It's classic law school stuff.
Classic Michael Cohen.
I think the most surprising thing in all this is that he actually got paid back.
I am shocked. Trump should come out and be like, by the way, everybody says I don't honor my contracts. I don't pay people back. Well, guess what? We even put in tax money. That's how above the board we were with this money funneling arrangement. What's this? Michael.
There's a Rolling Stone article that going into some of Michael Cohen's former associates.
Okay, so this is another Michael Cohen example of Michael Cohen's legal work. Michael Cohen represented guys who took turns renting U-Hauls and after obtaining insurance coverage, plowed them into vehicles occupied by friends in order to file bogus injury claims. This is like
This is a Ralph Cifaretto
plot
line.
Except it would be like it's like a Ralph Cifaretto plot line that Tony put an end to, and now they're having a summit at who is the guy who smokes all the time's house? Oh, I forget the guy's name, but like, all right. You need to meet with Ralph, Tone, and we're going to figure this out. He's having fucking U-Haul trucks plowing the people in the middle of fucking Teaneck. And he still isn't earning right. That guy's a fucking problem. Tone, it was his idea. You know that Ralph's very creative.
He's our best earner,
He's
Tone.
our best earner. He's a fucking moron.
There's some more here if you want to read this part.
Okay, is that literally a name? Pizza Grillo?
Isn't Grillo?
Pizza Grillo.
But later down here,
McFarland. Oh, not the part that's highlighted.
That name is a microaggression.
Wait, they're basically being crash test dummies in each collision, Jackson says. The U-Haul ring submitted more than $350,000 in fraudulent personal injury claims before they were caught. Both Pizza Grillo and McFarland pleaded guilty to third-degree insurance fraud, and Cohen's lawsuit was withdrawn. Pizza Grillo did not respond to a message seeking comment. You know, and this is the other amazing thing, is that also Michael Cohen's, I don't know if it's his former father-in-law or still father-in-law, was also involved in like some type of like taxi cab crimes or something. Michael Cohen, I said this before in relation to the Felix Seder speculation. It is shocking when you look at this guy's career and the amount of like criminal things he's been intimately entwined with, and the fact that he hasn't ever faced charges makes me speculate as to some other possible things that Michael Cohen might be doing in terms of certain types of people he might be talking to and giving information to, as an example.
Not following you.
I don't get it. I totally. You know, what's funny is it's like this. In some ways, this is the perfect distillation. Like, for the Bushes or the Obama or the Clinton administration, you'll say like, oh well, you know, this attorney or Jim Baker was like in bed with the Saudis for everything, or Eric Holder represented predatory Wall Street firms. And the distinction with Trump is it's like he's trying to work his way up there, but he got to start with the U-Haul guys.
Imagine crashing a U-Haul into your buddy's like SUV and be like, this is going to be fucking awesome. I'm going to T-bone you this time.
Yeah, I think, yeah, right, exactly. You're just like, and then you like visit him in the hospital. You're like, living the dream.
They're wearing like football uniforms in the car.
It's like, oh.
Neck brace on for the rest of the season.
I don't want to be. Why do I always have to be the one that gets crashed into? It's bullshit. They're out of fucking control.
That's how you know who your friends are.
Yeah, that's exactly how you know your friends are.
Would you trust them to crash a U-Haul into you?
All right. But now we're going to be talking about a very, very controversial politician who the resistance types have also focused a lot of energy on for doing really controversial things like advocating for expanding Social Security and wearing warm winter coats. We're talking about Bernie Sanders' independent media empire with Gabriel Debenedetti. Right back on the Majority Report.
You know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Marley Marl. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Sipping on private stock way back when I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match. Remember rapping Duke? The hard, you never thought that hip-hop would take it this far. Now I'm in the limelight cause I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Peace to Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri, Funk Master Flex, Love Bug, Star Ski. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. Call a crib, same number, same hood. It's all good. And if you don't know, now you know. You know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. roll with Robin Leach, and I'm far from cheap with my peeps all day. Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. The Moet and Alizé keep me pissy. Girls used to diss me, now they write letters cause they miss me. I never thought it could happen, this rapping stuff. I was too used to packing gats and stuff. Now honeys play me close like butter play toast. From the Mississippi down to the East Coast, condos in Queens, and for weeks, sold out seats to hear Biggie Small speak. Living life without fear, putting 5 carats in my baby girl ear. Lunches, brunches, interviews by the pool. Considered a fool cause I dropped out of high school.
Welcome back, Michael Brooks on the Majority Report. Joining us now is Gabriel Debenedetti. He is the national correspondent for New York Magazine and author of Bernie Sanders is Quietly Building a Digital Media Empire. Gabriel, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks so much.
So I think a lot of us, and I'm sure particularly people who watch and listen to the show, have caught different pieces of Bernie content over the last several months, whether it's a streamed YouTube town hall on inequality, whether it's an explainer video on everything from the inequities in the tax code to why we need to, preserve the Iran deal as an example. But you actually kind of map out that there's a real strategy here that in some ways is sort of could be harnessed both certainly for a presidential run, but is also actually getting to some of Bernie Sanders' sort of deepest desires as a politician and concerns about corporate media that go back to his start in politics as an independent candidate in the 1970s.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we don't know yet if how much of what he's doing now is geared towards 2020. And in fact, he says none of it is geared towards 2020, and we'll talk about all that later, he says. But he has certainly been trying to find an alternative to the mainstream media for 40 years. He, going back to when he was first running for mayor, he's been talking about in Burlington. He's been talking about the problems with the corporate mainstream media. When he first ran for re-election, he announced it by printing out his own fake newspaper that he, distributed around town. And after that, he had his own radio show, his own TV show, a few versions of his own TV show. Essentially, the idea here is that he's been trying to figure out ways to connect directly with voters for ages. This is one of the things that he thinks about most, and it's not a surprise to anyone who's heard him give his standard stump speech. But what's interesting now is that he has this operation in his Senate office. It's just 3 staffers and 3 interns. But they're
paid interns, as you point out.
Paid interns.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
But they're cranking out these videos nonstop. In 2017, they put out over 500 videos, and some of these, as you say, are these live streams. And when he does these live streams, he's been getting more viewers than CNN at the same time. So it's really something that's quite remarkable that a lot of folks on Capitol Hill didn't even realize was happening until I published this story. I got a lot of people reach out to me and say, I had no idea, because he doesn't do he's not particularly aggressive about promoting this. He's essentially just, showing it to his own backers and anyone that stumbles upon his Facebook page.
Yeah, so, but at the same time, the numbers are astonishing. And I mean, obviously people know by now you'd have to be really, disconnected from political reality. He obviously has a lot of backers, and he ran a very strong race in 2016. But do you get the sense that this reception, I mean, obviously there's already a built-in constituency for him, and they're sort of, attempting to broaden out through things like Our Revolution and support different kinds of candidates. But at the same time, he's getting into this algorithm-driven, very distinct media space that a lot of people, obviously, in traditional media and politics don't particularly understand. I think also a fair amount of us kind of navigating this space don't entirely understand it either, because some of the methodology is pretty opaque behind it. But do you get a sense that he might also be tapping into, new people, actually sort of, starting the process that he started so late in 2016, potentially earlier? And I guess not to frame it inside 2020, but just in terms of like a kind of broader outreach and exposure to new sets of potential constituents and voters for, the agenda he pushes writ large, even regardless of 2020.
Yeah, that's something that I asked him about directly when I.
Hello? Gabriel. I think we'll just call him right back. I'm not really sure what happened there. All right.
This album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from, that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. And all the struggle, you know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read
No, a little more Biggie Never Hurt Anybody. Gabriel, you were saying. Go ahead.
I am here. Yes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
What I was saying is that this is something that I talked to Senator Sanders about. I asked him specifically when we were talking about this project of his, whether he's reaching out to some people, and his answer is sort of that he's always reaching out to more people, and that this is not specifically a strategy to find new voters for any particular election. But I talked to a lot of his staffers who've been working with him for a very long time, and what he has always said is that he does have an ambition to create some sort of alternative news network that just talks about policy and reaches the biggest possible audience, bigger than the New York Times if possible. That's what he's always compared himself to. And if that includes reaching out to new people and getting new people on board, that's great. But that's not his primary interest right now. What he's trying to do is figure out ways to build this as broadly as possible. But as I said, he's not really promoting this in any way, although sometimes he does do, he will work together with other alternative news networks and try and get some other people to pay attention here. But for now, he's not focused on, for example, building his campaign list or anything like that. And it's important to note that a lot of this is being done within his Senate office. It's not part of his campaign team, which of course is still up and running. And when you ask him about the political side of it, he sort of gets a bit frustrated. He sees those as two different issues because, of course, this is something that he's been trying to do for years, and the campaign is also something that he's been trying to do for a long time, but it's different.
Do you think that it's also striking when he talks about it, is that he sort of has two parts of his critique. There's the stuff that, I think everybody would expect. Like, why isn't media talking about the most important issues? Why aren't they talking about, climate, poverty, inequality, banks, healthcare, the policy. But he also seems, and you kind of alluded to it there, he also almost has this other sort of like back in my day, we could have long conversations about things, like kind of a critique of the medium too. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He's, anyone who's heard one of his stump speeches on the campaign trail, or really what he's been saying pretty consistently for decades, knows that he's no fan of the modern media and what he has called the modern media since the 1970s. But, one of his central critiques is essentially not just that, the news shows don't, as you say, talk about the central issues. And he thinks that has a lot to do with advertisers and with the fact they're run by corporations with their own bottom lines. But the other side of it is he just doesn't like the format, and so on these videos that he puts out, a whole lot of them don't have him at all. In them. It's primarily real people, and there's very little talk about, there's almost no talk about Robert Mueller or the Russia investigation or anything like that. It's basically all about policy, and that's because he doesn't like these talking heads. And, very importantly here, let's not pretend that this is a straight-ahead news show. Of course, it is his point of view, so it's not as if there's much room for dissent from that either.
Yeah, of course. Does he talk? He also speaks about his sort of frustration with that specifically. And I'm wondering if maybe, again, it's an outlier poll, so I wouldn't get sort of overly freaked out about it, but there is this new, millennials drifting away from Democrats poll. And again, I mean, the first thing to say is it's an outlier, and overall the numbers don't reflect that, particularly with millennials. But if one had to speculate, at least me, I would speculate part of the reason might be that if the kind of primary identification of Democrats in media is just this sort of one-track obsession with, I mean, not only Russia and Mueller, but just any type of Trump whatever, at the expense of everything else. Does he speak to that directly, and how does he balance, and maybe he's not trying to balance, but how does he balance both the needed critique of, like, as an example, MSNBC, it's just Russia, 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 Stormy Daniels, Russia, and we need to talk about, some actual things too. How does he balance that at the same time with also, part of the people he is talking to are, obviously, I mean, Democrats who really do hate and are kind of uniquely disturbed by Donald Trump. How does he kind of thread that? Has he threaded that needle by trying to, like, bring those worlds together at all? Like, even if we looked at something like Trump and Russia, maybe we could look at, international money laundering and tax havens and, how that fits with the inequality narrative. Exactly. Is that what he's doing?
It's more or less that, yeah. I mean, I think, as I said earlier, it's important to remember that the way that this is happening is it's essentially a lot of these are really press releases in video form. This is just his way of opining on the news often. And what he does very frequently is he will not talk about investigations, so whether it's Mueller or Stormy Daniels or anything like that, but exactly what you just said. He'll talk about tax havens, or he will talk about foreign policy issues. So there is a lot of Trump talk on this Bernie TV, but it's very, very closely targeted so he can make a broader point about policy. He doesn't certainly say anything positive about Donald Trump, but he's not really talking about the news that, you know, you would think would be the top story of the day if you're watching cable news or reading the big newspapers every morning. And his argument is basically like, listen, I just want to talk about policy, and if Trump gives me an opportunity to do that, I'll do it. But the reason that Trump is bad is not because of Mueller.
Do you think it's that in the same way in 2016 that some of the same reasons that maybe people who you know, look at the sort of horse race stuff and would kind of say like, oh, you know, he's gruff and his suits are rumpled and blah blah blah, and actually in the environment of 2016 it sort of worked in his favor, that he was kind of like this, you know, sort of unapologetic, kind of no nonsense, you know, kind of like gruff grandpa that's looking out for you kind of thing. Do you think that that also fits the specific mediums that he's playing? Like, you know, that people who are looking to YouTube and podcasting and everything, that it's a bit more, you know, it's, I guess the simplest way is it's not as polished.
Exactly. It's definitely, it's very informal. And that is an important thing that he likes to focus on. I mean, obviously these videos are pretty well produced for the most part, but they're clearly produced quickly. They're not, you know, cable news segments or certainly documentary type things. And I think that informality and that level of direct connection to real people who are watching it is exactly what he's going for. You know, it doesn't necessarily work if you're trying to win over people in a long political argument and they want to see polished arguments in front of them. But it certainly does work if you're trying to go viral, or if you're just trying to reach out to your voters and quickly explain what you need to get across to them. And again, that's basically what he's doing here. He's not trying to create, Oscar-winning documentaries.
From the perspective of other, people in Washington, other political figures, I mean, I know he's done some of these things with Elizabeth Warren, and it was kind of shocking to me that you said that most people were not, following this, because it would seem to me that whether you were interested in building up your own personal brand and disseminating a direct relationship with constituents, and in fact, if you are serious about, a national run, these are exactly the types of mediums you need to be looking into. Are there any? Yeah, I mean, what are other people in the Senate and in Washington really not following this? I mean, and sort of, attempting to think about how it could apply to them.
I think every single one of the people who might run for president in 2020 understands that they're likely going to have to do something like this in order to reach out to people directly. But one of the reasons that folks are not necessarily aware of what Bernie was doing is that he rarely works directly with other Senate offices on things like this. He's obviously a go-it-alone kind of guy. And so a lot of people who work in other Senate offices or other senators sort of said to me, the reason that we didn't know this was happening is that he never told us it was happening. And obviously these are not people who sort of just pop over to his Facebook page every day to see what he's updating. So because there's no broader dissemination of these videos in a sort of concerted way, these people just didn't know that this was happening at all. And you did mention that, he did do that one event with Senator Warren, and that's certainly true. But that was a sort of one-off invited event. It's not as if he's made a practice of appearing with other senators. And it's interesting because this is something that other senators would love to sort of jump in on, but a lot of them aren't necessarily working with Sanders on a day-to-day basis on a lot of these policies, so they haven't had the opportunity to. That there's reason to believe that might change, especially as 2020 comes into focus, and whether he runs or not, he's going to play a particularly big role in it.
Right.
But to the other part of the question here, someone who is I quote in the story Brian Fallon, who was Hillary Clinton's press secretary, and he said, listen, no matter what, in 2020, if you run for president, you're going to have a production team like this on your communication shop, because this is very clearly the best way to reach out to people.
There's no doubt about that. What has struck me in this profile is that, everything that Bernie is saying about cable news and the influence of, media monopolies and advertisers and the sort of dumbed down format. I mean, I think, all of these criticisms certainly make a lot of sense to me and my sort of, analysis, and I think clearly to a lot of people. And obviously, YouTube and podcasting and social networks and platforms, as much as we might criticize them for any number of things, have obviously opened up the door for precisely this type of thing that he's doing, which, I just think isn't sort of, especially just on the policy end, it's not debatable that it's an improvement to have an outlet where somebody can, directly make the case in a more detailed and specific way about things that actually really matter. And to some extent, that's ideologically neutral. Presumably somebody on the right or in the center, I might have a question about, the methodology and how much of a base there is, particularly for a centrist message actually in this type of medium. But, the more the better, people trying to communicate in these formats and get more detailed. But it also was interesting because it seems like just as he's sort of finally finding his way around the traditional media monopolies that he's been fighting his whole career, he's taking advantage of these Silicon Valley platforms, which bring their own tremendously dangerous implications for privacy, and also obviously are tremendously monopolistic in and of themselves.
Absolutely.
How is that in the analysis at all? Is he thinking about that?
Well, yeah. I think the short answer is he's using the technology that's most available and the easiest and best technology to do that. And right now, what he's using primarily over everything else is Facebook and Facebook Live.
Right.
But the day that I sat down with him was the day that Mark Zuckerberg was testifying in the Senate, and there, every TV in Sanders' Senate office was showing Zuckerberg's testimony, and I asked him about it, and he essentially said he's extremely worried about these privacy issues, but there's not really a good, and there are a lot of questions that Zuckerberg still has to answer, but there's not really a good answer to the overall question here, because as it currently stands, Facebook certainly is the best way for him to reach this big audience. Now, he does use Twitter, he does use YouTube, but there aren't a ton of other ways of directly connecting with people, and that is something that he's grappling with.
And they certainly, it's not like, yeah, of course. Google and Twitter, it's not just Facebook. Twitter, just as an example, updated their, privacy regulations in an incredibly invasive fashion. What are the most popular videos? Like, what are people particularly, or podcasts, or, he sat down with everybody, I think, from Bill Nye to Al Gore to, done an explainer on why John Bolton is so uniquely threatening. What are people most strongly responding to?
The most popular video by far is one where he highlights the work of essentially the Canadian healthcare system, and he shows what happens when a Canadian doctor came to the Capitol and talked to senators about that system. It's part of his overall push on single-payer healthcare. Other popular videos, though, include more or less things that are anti-Trump, and that sort of speaks to the broader question here of whether this is a broader Democratic thing or broader progressive thing or just a Sanders thing. But basically, the videos that have done well, in addition to the Canadian one, include videos about him, for example, that outline, for example, the Women's March and things like that, and videos around Trump's inauguration. But other than that, of course, he does do interviews with a number of people, as you said, Bill Nye, Al Gore, Bill de Blasio, and in addition to that, he has done a few live streams. So he has the one with Senator Warren, which was extremely popular. It drew millions of people that night. So it's a pretty wide variety, and people tend to tune into the ones that are either about healthcare, because that's an issue that he's widely known for, or about Donald Trump.
From a broader kind of future of political advertising and strategy perspective, this is really interesting because, consultants have for a long time have been sort of, they're admitting the declining importance of television advertising, even though they certainly don't want that gravy train to go away, because that's still an incredible amount of money for those ad buys. And obviously that's another bottom line interest of the cable and television industry. But it seems that the consultants kind of go in two different directions with, the sort of transitioning out of television. And one is that, maybe not, Cambridge Analytica had very questionable methodology too. But, one end is it's all about these incredibly micro-targeted mini experiences, and you can have, some people think you still need to make really elaborate ads and productions that are sort of aimed on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Other people think, no, you can actually and actually the Trump campaign did this. They had incredibly cheap production, rudimentary ads mostly. And then on the other hand, I mean, it seems like the Sanders direction is actually like, political advertising is almost going to have to be like, public access programming. I mean, what do you think the implications are for how strategists think about campaigns in general, and what advertising and communication even is, and how big a line there is between that and policy?
Well, there's a huge question about what this is going to look like moving forward. I think Sanders certainly is someone who tried very hard to be innovative when it came to digital outreach during his 2016 campaign. But the reality is that his television ads and spending on television consultants were a huge part of his expenditures, and a part of the reason that he was able to scale up so quickly and get so many people to pay attention to him. So in the future, people are certainly, and this has been the case for the last few election cycles, experimenting with new ways to micro-target, experimenting with new ways to directly reach voters. But I think the implication of one of the implications of your question is a totally fair one, which is, there will certainly be a further divergence of regular campaign rallies and just advertisements. People will be aiming to live stream everything, and they will be paying for people to see that. So there will be, the politics of the technology of politics is changing nonstop. There's no doubt that the 2020 campaign in particular, when Democrats will be especially desperate to beat the incumbent president, we're going to see all sorts of interesting experimentation along these lines.
Related to that, the other thing that Bernie is obviously very intent about, but even was actually a very important part of Barack Obama's wins, was actually synchronizing, micro-targeting and television efforts with really activating door-to-door. And one of the major failings of the Clinton campaign was sort of letting that lapse and thinking that kind of analytics could take care of it in and of itself. Does he have a sense of how this translates into, clearly what he wants, which is sort of empowering people to take action in their, local, state, and national issues? Does he have is there a kind of sense of how that funnels, or is it just, go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's be clear that Sanders is certainly doing this video operation and this media operation, but he's also got other things going on. He's got his Our Revolution political group. Right. He is doing rallies for other Democrats all around the country, for other candidates all over the country. So I think the answer to your question is he's certainly doing a lot of these things, and he's clearly still considering running for president in 2020 right. and considering what his political future looks like. And yes, of course, he's going to want to continue to empower people all around the country, and that's one of the reasons that they launched Our Revolution after the 2016 campaign, so that they could have an outreach all over the country. But the reality is, those are two different sides of his overall operation here. And when you ask him, how is what you're doing now going to translate into 2020, he sort of says that's not how we think about this. And it's true. Yeah. This is something that he has thought about for a very long time, and not in the context of eventually running for president.
Final question. What does he have planned? I mean, did he give you a sense of is it going to sort of steady state? Is this going to be scaled up? I'm not talking about 2020, but just the media operation specifically. Sure. Even sure. Just as a content planner, what does he have moving forward?
Yeah, he essentially said, listen, this is working well and we're going to continue to do it, but that he was also going to continue to try and improve it in any way he can, continue to try and experiment with new ways of reaching people, new kinds of video production. Again, this is something that he's been trying to do for 40 years now. So the idea that he would just say, oh, well, the technology works now, so let's stick with this one, doesn't really jive with how he's been doing things in the past. But I think what we'll see a lot more of is perhaps the live streams, because every time that he's done those, they've had enormous audiences. And now that he's likely to be out on the campaign trail more in 2018, campaigning for other people, it's likely that you're going to see more and more of those rallies live streamed. And, that's something that we saw during the 2016 campaign. But obviously, things have changed a little bit since then.
Actually, I take that back. The actual final question. He's done a few of these town halls with CNN. Did you talk to any people in that traditional, in that corporate media space, and did they have any sense of wow, we got to give him even more time, or at the very least start thinking about covering, poverty or Medicare for all a little bit, just even from that same, get eyeballs market perspective that he criticizes?
I think there are two answers to this. First answer is sure, yes, they're monitoring this and they're aware of what he's doing. But of course, there's huge hesitance to sort of all of a sudden do a town hall on just on a policy issue or something like that, because of course that's not something that's been in the traditional corporate media wheelhouse. So I think there's a lot of foot dragging, but these folks are also watching what he's doing very closely because, as you know, he is invited on CNN and MSNBC all the time. And they're aware of his sort of power as a messenger. So they are certainly studying what he's up to. And I don't think they think that it's any coincidence at all that a number of his staffers are former network employees because they see another way of doing this stuff.
Gabriel Debenedetti, national correspondent for the New York Magazine. We'll have links to all of your info on majority.fm. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, folks. We are going to get to the fun half where we officially join forces with Alex Jones. It's fun. It is sort of like, I enjoy scumbag on scumbag violence, but in this case, I really do have a scumbag preference, and I make no bones about it. I think it's clear who we like better.
I'm pretty sure it's unanimous, actually.
Yeah, I think it's unanimous. I think that if you are coming out the wrong side of this fight, I actually have to question you as an ally. Become a member of the Majority Report today, majority.fm/become a member. JustCoffee.coop, get the Majority Report blend. Leave the Majority Report a review on iTunes. Subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already. How are we doing on YouTube? We're very healthy numbers.
We're hitting. We're almost at 1,600 live viewers, which is that's about double where we were when I started at this show.
And how many subscribers?
Oh, 270,000.
Sweet. And of course, that way you can watch the live show, all of our clips. You can watch Michael Brooks' show live. It's a very active channel. Check out my show, patreon.com/TMBS. Check out what's going on. How new Antifada?
Newish.
Well, whatever.
Yeah. We got Ross Wolf of Left Book fame. We talk about left communism. We talk about various fights that Sean's gotten in. It's fun.
Nice. I dig it. Check out all of these things and see you on the flip side.
You are in for it. All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Danerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks. Reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck them.
Almost says what?
What?
Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back.
And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total
Pussy.
Jesus. The staying power of that song is like awe-inspiring. And the fact that it's a totally viable club track. DJ Danerkey is a genius.
It's a real banger.
It is a banger. You're calling from a 734 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. How are you? This is Jack from Detroit.
Jack, how are you?
Doing pretty well. So I came in to talk about how I'm glad to see that Bernie Sanders is trying to make a media empire of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be nice to see all kinds of voices on his show. So I just was wondering how the Bernie Sanders show, his radio show, is doing. Is it doing pretty okay right now?
His podcast? I think all of it is doing very well. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, doing well. All right, is that what you got?
That's all I got.
All right, well, thank you for the call. It's nice to check in with you sometimes, Jack. I appreciate it. Thank you. You're calling from an 847 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, it's Josh from Chicago.
Hey, Josh, what's going on?
Well, I'm just preparing to spend a weekend with some of my right-wing Zionist family. That should be fun.
Sounds great.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Bernie because I am increasingly impressed with the job he's doing campaigning for 2020, especially with the digital media stuff. And I think he's like one of the few politicians who put stuff on digital media and it actually feels really organic.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel contrived or actually like pandering in a way.
Sure. You mean that you weren't impressed by Hillary doing the nay-nay? I'm surprised.
Or Hillary Clinton.
Shillery. Yeah. Shillery does the nay-nay.
But she's my abuelita.
Oh, God. All right, this is actually getting uncomfortable even for me. I forgot how embarrassing those things were. All right, yeah, no, I agree with you. But I think part of it, though, is just purely because he already has a very, very high credibility threshold. And, that translates to the media. I mean, they are very well produced.
Yeah.
But, oh, God.
No, yeah. And I would actually encourage people to check out a video he did on Israel and Palestine. I think it's like a few weeks ago. She's specifically about Gaza.
And I just want to say,
incredibly produced. But the information is amazing.
He is, and it's a funny thing because I've been hearing rumblings. I'm going to let you go, Josh, just because there's a lot of noise in the background, but I appreciate the call. I've been hearing a lot of rumblings that Elizabeth Warren might actually be taking a look at this. And I like Elizabeth Warren. She's what the center of the Democratic Party should be, and that she's like an actual liberal. She got some very good instincts and a very credible record on things like Wall Street. And I think she's genuine when she supports things like Medicare for All. But part of it is analytic and structural. I think that Bernie actually really is a democratic socialist. Very moderate, but I think he actually does have an understanding of class and structure that she does not have. And another line that he's opening up, and it's in contrast to 2016, is actually on foreign policy. He is talking as honestly as an American politician seems to be able to do about, as an example, the Israeli murders in Gaza. Elizabeth Warren, as far as I can tell, has been an absolute I mean, just the garbage, hack AIPAC line on Israel. Nothing exceptional, and some very bad things on foreign policy. And that's already another front where Bernie Sanders really is staking a claim for some, actual, for real, forward-moving politics. And that really does need to be noted. What was this? Yeah, sure. Matt's a sociopath. Matt's like, oh, somebody said something embarrassing a couple years ago. I just happened to have that on my computer. All right, which is this? Which is the Hillary malfunction?
Wait, this isn't from years ago. This is on the sound sheet today. This is fresh sound.
Oh my God, I didn't even know we had fresh sound of Hillary. Wait, excuse me. Where's my sound sheet? Because the problem is I get my sound sheet. The problem is that I don't have freakouts, so everything is chill, and I get a sound sheet right when the show starts, and then I don't know what's on it.
Now you understand.
Now I understand. Now, God damn it! Hello. Where I actually really don't see this on the sheet. Is it not? No, it's not on the sheet, guys. We'll come back to it. Okay, we'll come back to Hillary Clinton on the sheet. We could have used that transition. All right, but let's just get to the real. Let's just get to dessert. Why not? At least 3 people yesterday, I think 3, maybe at least 2 people messaged me last night. No, 3 people. They're like, check this out. Alex Jones is going to war against Ben Shapiro. And what's really disturbing is that they were correct. I was like, that's awesome. And I dropped what I was doing to focus on this. Ben Shapiro basically is sort of trying to take advantage, like every other right-wing hack on the planet, of Kanye West's mental breakdown / brilliant marketing scheme. And, but let's be real here. Like, Kanye belongs in the Alex Jones world, right? And because they're great performers, because they're narcissists. And Ben Shapiro's trying to govern it like, no, Kanye, don't go on Alex Jones. Yeah.
What does he care?
Well, because he cares, because he probably wants Kanye on his podcast, because he wants to police Kanye as a political football. And this is Alex Jones setting the record straight. And I just want to say, I don't even know. I mean, solidarity, Alex. I think the idea of forming alliances with alt-right reactionaries and bigots to stop war by retweeting each other is fucking stupid. But if there is an alliance where I could team up with Alex Jones to mock and degrade Ben Shapiro, I am of that alliance. And this alliance starts right now. Let's play this clip. We've added a little flourish to this, Alex, a little Majority Report Eminem special for you. Well, excuse me, I meant like Matt and Mike, but fair enough. Matt and Mike concept. This is definitely not Eminem. This is Michael Brooks' involvement, so no Eminem on this instrumental. Check it out. Check out Alex Jones ethering Ben Shapiro.
All right. I had a bunch of in-studio audience and a bunch of crew here. They're like, who's Ben Shapiro? Well, he's an anointed neocon snot-nose who walks around making Richard Pearl-type faces where he tries to act scary and powerful. He just recycles a bunch of libertarian conservative thought and a bunch of other think tank stuff. And I just noticed he's always criticizing me and always trying to keep people off my show while he makes little faces like this. I mean, these are the faces 5-year-olds make when they're playing G.I. Joe.
Holla.
So I don't care. He's some little Twitter guy and everything and into himself. But he's always trying to police me. And then I say, hey, come on the show. And my God, he's Ben Shapiro. I mean, he's a god. He doesn't reach 86 million people the week of the election. That doesn't matter. He doesn't reach conservatively 5 to 6 million actual viewers and listeners a day, bigger than Limbaugh. No, he's not being sued by George Soros and Hillary Clinton and being called the dark art. No, he is the anointed. Just like a leftist, he has this arrogance. And so it blew up in his face today. Candace Owens was here. She wanted us to hire her. I knew she was a great star. I blinked, 4 months went by with all the distractions I have. And she works with Turning Point, who are great folks, and is on Fox News everywhere, and that's wonderful. I just hope she doesn't just join the Fox Club and become like a collected stamp in their repertoire But she's a star. She's got electricity, you name it. I knew when she was on with us a bunch back 4 or 5 months ago and that the new right was like, don't have her on. She's an operative. She's a doxer, all this bull. And I said, I want her on a lot. You know, somehow I blinked, and 4 months later, she's Kanye West. It's all exploded. It's everywhere. That's great. But I know how stories work. Her coming on now doesn't include us in that story. We're already in thousands of stories a day that don't matter. What matters is an audience of focused people that understand free market and action. But to illustrate these right-wing gatekeepers, I put a tweet out earlier. Ben Shapiro was saying, no, like Luke Skywalker, no, that's not true, it's impossible. He was criticizing Kanye West in a YouTube I came across and watched 20 seconds of, like last week, saying, don't trust Kanye, he'll stab you in the back. He's not perfect, he's fighting the establishment. He's breaking out of the mold. He's saying be a free thinker. It doesn't mean we endorse everything he does, but we go on whose shows we want. We talk about what we want. We're not coastal elites, and most folks on the coast aren't elites, but they're the coastal elites that live there that want to run everything. So he said, no, no, Candace, no. Now let's scroll down and actually.
Kanye.
There it is. No, no, no. I make powerful faces. I'm in command now. Facebook, YouTube, and Google, leave me alone and let my videos spread. I'm not censored because I'm anti-establishment. I'm the mighty Ben Shapiro.
Like your soul burns slow, Ben. Props to Alex Jones. That was beautiful. You know what I really like, though, about that? I love when Alex Jones says one thing and then goes, you name it. Like, usually when you do a list and you're like, yeah, you name it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, she got electricity, you name it. Star power, you name it. Really pissed that I blew her off, and now she's at Turning Points, which is great because I'm actually looking at a funding model from them. And Fox News, I just hope that she doesn't go on Fox and not come on my show anymore. He's actually totally right about Ben Shapiro. Like, I mean, in the sense that the idea that Ben Shapiro is just like, he is utterly useless. And he's also never, it's very dangerous, some of this crackdown on quote unquote fake news, right? It is going to target some people who are propagandists and push out conspiracies and nonsense, right? But it's also already hurt independent platforms. You know, the algorithm doesn't really make any difference in distinction between Pizzagate and the CIA is involved in, like, I don't know, Afghan heroin, poppy seed trafficking as an example, right? Like, those are not both, like, one is a crazy conspiracy. One is actually instrumental in U.S. foreign policy. But all solidarity all day. That was beautiful.
I just interviewed Alex Jones's ex-wife, actually.
Liar.
I've got
She's not a free thinker.
Something coming out on that really soon. So I'm like, I've just been in a very dark place with all that real Alex Jones shit. But on the level of this video, I can certainly appreciate him.
And let me just say, Alex, if you're watching this, I don't believe everything your wife's saying at all. Come on my show and give your side of the story.
This is all coded.
It's all coded.
Oh my God.
It's
no comment.
It's all coded. It's all coded. His wife works for Ben Shapiro and the globalists.
I love that smear though and it's sort of true. Like, why does YouTube and Facebook allow Ben Shapiro's shit, like that Columbus Day cartoon he put? Why do they allow that to just go through the tubes?
See,
like
my play.
He says it in a really reasonable way, so you think that he's just being normal when he's being super racist.
Well,
I
no.
just signed off on that. I didn't actually make it myself.
Right.
He did say that.
He did.
Oh,
say that.
you didn't animate that yourself, Ben? Oh, thanks.
No, he literally did. Like, I was out of the office that day, and then had to, like, apologize.
Not on email
for that cartoon, where it's like amazing. It's like, dude, why? Like, that would be like me apologizing for, like, hey, like, you know, Matt subbed for me last night and made a joke about Bernie shooting Steve Scalise, and I came back and I was just like, I did not sign off on that. Terrible. The guy promotes all this garbage every day. All right, this is Hillary Clinton. I still don't have the. Is it? Oh, wait. The headline of the story. I don't have IM open on this computer. Okay, who's she talking to? I get it. Okay, Hillary Clinton at an event yesterday, she was speaking about her run with Bernie Sanders and economic issues. I don't know what forum this is at. Sorry. Oh, an interview with Time Inc.'s brand executive Alan Murray on her economic policies and Bernie Sanders. And this is Hillary Clinton. And I just want to say, like, by the way, we talked about this the other day. Just be like, Republicans are going to run against her absolutely no matter what, even if she went away and never spoke again. And I predict that in September or October, she's going to come out and say something that's extremely stupid and detrimental to Democratic candidates. So just be ready.
Well, it depends who it is, right?
No, it probably will be universally unhelpful. Because usually the closer it is to an election day, even just the way she frames a sentence will
that's
have
fair.
maximum lack of
But
help.
will she be doing it on purpose or not?
I think this isn't like on purpose. This is just what she thinks. This is Hillary Clinton talking about what really hurt her with Democratic voters.
You may be the only presidential candidate since World War II that actually had to stand up and say, I am a capitalist. And you did. Did it hurt you?
Probably. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to know, but I mean, if you're in the Iowa caucuses and 41% of Democrats are socialists or self-described socialists, and I'm asked, "Are you a capitalist?" and I say yes, but with appropriate regulation and appropriate accountability, that probably gets lost in the, oh my gosh, she's a capitalist.
I can't believe she lost.
Yeah, the thing that's so amazing about this clip, though, is that the message is off, but you really just see what a powerful and persuasive and appealing politician Hillary Clinton is. Right. But, God, if I watch more clips of her, she's going to remind me of why I totally can't stand her. But
well, not for nothing. This might be the first time she's admitted that she lost in some places to Bernie because she was running to the right of him and not because of sexism.
That's true. But let's really break this down. Can you even begin to compute the level of human delusion that says that in American politics, a country where Eugene like the only socialist that probably is publicly quasi-broadly known, and not really, most people wouldn't know who he was, Eugene Debs went to jail, ran a couple of independent runs for president, and was like a respected protest vote. Okay, socialist labor union organizers, as an example, have been murdered by private militias. The modern Democratic Party is so extremely far to the right and in the global macroeconomic neoliberal mainstream that things like signing welfare reform in 1996, which her husband did, which is a basic vicious assault on great society level stuff, was not only done but bragged about by these people. And when Bernie Sanders first announced for president and they thought he was a joke, people would always mention, this guy calls himself a socialist, for God's sake. And somehow, in the span of a couple of months, because of one Iowa poll, which, by the way, I don't know if that's a true number or not, being a socialist went from something that historically might even get you killed in this country or completely politically marginalized in the modern era, became the advantage, and it was a brave thing to admit that you supported and were allied with by far the most powerful forces on the planet. That is a level of delusion that is somewhat unique to Hillary Clinton. And the second, more prosaic point is Barack Obama. Well, here's what we have. We have three sectors. We got a government sector, we got a private sector, and we have a social sector. And what you need is you need balance. So, as an example, we can regulate. I mean, point being, I could bullshit a better answer than, I'm a capitalist with regulations, eh? I mean, she is awe-inspiringly bad at her job. And that is as a electoral politician.
Just say, I'm a public servant, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Well, at least she's being honest about it. that part anyway.
She's being honest and expressing her delusion. I have to say, it reminds me of. I don't want to beat up on him now because he's done
Do you
good
think
work.
she really believes in this, though?
Yes, absolutely. I totally do. I believe in cognitive capture. I think it is
'Cause
the
this is
corollary of market.
A lot of what these people do is they try to make themselves out like the victims no matter what's happening.
Well, I think that the Clintons in particular think they are
Yeah,
victimized
and they
all
want
the
to paint
time.
all criticism as bad faith criticism.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I just think like, but if we're going to speculate as to what she really believes, I think yes, she really believes that she is the victim. And I think she also really believes in, I think if you distilled the sole policy essence of the Clintons, you could probably extract it from like a 1999 Tom Friedman column. Like, this is like, it's like that famous Tony Blair line. I always use it. And at least he said it with more flair. But he said at a party conference at a Labor Party, I forget what year, he's and he is well to the right. I mean, imagine in the UK where Labour actually is historically a socialist party. And Tony Blair is, in some respects, far to the right of the Clintons. Okay. And he's giving a speech where he's talking about, all the things he wants to do with privatizing health service and all this stuff. And he's like, and he's going through the speculations as to why he does what he does. He's like, and some people say it's because I think it's the only way we can win. And some people say it's because I'm afraid of the Murdoch press. Although it's funny, recently he's kind of admitted that he was afraid of the Murdoch press. But he paused and he's like, it's even worse. I actually believe this stuff, which is pretty funny, but it's like, it's true. Like, these people actually believe this stuff.
Well, from her mouth to God's ears.
This event, just for a little background, is the Shared Value Leadership Summit, which launched in 2011, is the premier venue for executives focused on building social and business value that enables innovation, growth, and prosperity.
God.
Bingo!
Oh my God.
That said, on a brand Dope Boys level, I'm totally available to give a talk about conscious brands in the 21st century. If you pay me extremely handsomely, I will be there.
Hey, the only thing these people have ever had going for them is that they supposedly can win elections. Like, that's why most liberal Democrats supported the Clintons, I would say. And now they can't even do that, so fuck them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not
no
nothing.
doubt about
It's not
that.
nothing to be
They're
able to beat
useless.
Republicans in the early 90s.
Yeah,
but
it's not
now
nothing.
that's not enough.
But
and
it's
obviously
not what they can. They don't do that.
Right, exactly.
They also both Bill and Barack, like, the party lost overall. Like, you just have a dynamic where it's like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are singularly talented and charismatic politicians, so they win. I mean, that's the other part that I actually think people on both on the actual left and people with the centrist stuff both miss. There is a part of this that's just like the more appealing person wins. Right? Like, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were charismatic as hell.
Well, they've done those studies
And
about
they won.
attractiveness, that more attractive
And
candidate
height
wins with,
and voice. I mean, there's all these stuff. It's just like
fucking bullshit. I'm tired of talking about this.
But he's the right brand of the time we're in now.
And he's handsome.
Which one? Bernie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bernie's a 10.
Yeah, okay.
In a certain sense.
Sexualize me.
Sense. Yeah, you can sexualize me all you want, but I'm a little bit busy with Cardi B. Give me that Scandinavian brain. I should have saved that for TMBS. All right. This is an incredible ad. The machinations going on here are just sort of, they're Baroque, actually. So Evan Jenkins, I actually think we played something from him yesterday because he had another Hillary Clinton ad. He's the guy who looks like he has glass eyes. He ran an ad. He's in a tight Senate primary in West Virginia. And he ran an ad against his rival, Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. And what he literally does in this ad is they actually photoshopped a picture from David Morrissey, his opponent, shaking hands with Donald Trump. And they changed it to look like he's shaking hands with Hillary Clinton. So this is basically the best Republican ad ever made.
But here's one that
Oh,
you
and
just
sorry,
ran.
I should say he's on Fox News, and even Fox News is giving him a little bit of like a, dude, like, we're all completely insane, mentally ill propagandists. But I mean, whoa.
But here's one that you just ran. Let's play about 10 seconds of this.
Pat Morrissey betrayed Donald Trump, scheming against Trump's campaign in West Virginia, denying our choice for president. Morrissey refused to support Trump over Hillary.
All right, so you know that Patrick Morrissey is fighting back. He doesn't like that ad at all. And here's what he said. He said that your campaign photoshopped his photo with Donald Trump and substituted it with Hillary, who he says he's always strongly opposed. And he wants to know if you'll be called out for lying and dishonesty, and where's the accountability? What do you say about that ad, Congressman Jenkins?
Well, Patrick Morrissey needs to be honest with the people of West Virginia.
I know what you are, but what am I?
That's not even I know you are, but that's like pre I know you are, but what am I?
You do.
That's like you just
no,
like
you.
It's like that's like you just stepped in and I'm with your wife and you just look up and you're like, you need to stop talking to my wife.
Here's the image.
Here's the image. This is an incredible Photoshop.
Wow.
Also, the irony of talking about honesty and integrity in reference to a photo of you with Donald Trump is like, oh.
Right.
Ooh.
It's just a mama ghoul. It's just like this next ad, like the ads a couple years from now, you're gonna be like, he claims he was involved in the U-Haul insurance scheme, but he wasn't. And I just think that as supporters of Donald Trump, we need to be really honest about what parts of the extended criminal scam network people were involved in, because as Republican voters, we have a right to transparency and honesty.
Yeah, and look at that guy. He doesn't give a shit because he knows the damage is already done.
That's probably true, actually. Although presumably these people are watching Fox.
I don't know if you guys saw that in the lower third, Chiron, but they're having the West Virginia Senate debate tonight, which is also going to feature Blankenship, which is like, this is just like more potent than that state's best moonshine.
Yeah, West Virginia, which is treated like an internal colony by the United States and ruthlessly exploited for its resources, has a Republican Senate primary, and both parties there are totally compromised and owned by coal, no doubt. But just by point of example, the Senate primary has the Photoshop glass eye guy, the far-right attorney general who's like, no, that was me with Trump. How dare you? You have no integrity, sir. I would never touch Hillary Clinton's hand. I would shake hands with Donald Trump because that has integrity. And then the third candidate is a convicted felon who's running from Nevada, I believe, because he can't be in the state because he was responsible for coal miner deaths because of safety lapses at a coal mine that he ran as part of a larger company. And recently, a coal miner whose son died said something effective, like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, it feels really bad to see that guy on television running for Senate when he was responsible for killing my son. Wow. So basically, the point is that West Virginia Republicans have three great choices. It's stiff competition.
Do we know what kind of Democrats are running?
Well, Joe Manchin's running for re-election, and then he's got a challenger who I'm sure I would vote for, but I don't. I think in reality, Manchin will probably win re-election, and he's the only Democrat in West Virginia who could do anything on a state level and this way. And Joe Manchin is a guy who's so smarmy that if you look up his interview at Jank, where he keeps calling Jank Janks, which I loved, he's like, well, I'll tell you, Janks, I'll tell you this, I don't know any people could have given me $30,000 and stuffed it right in my pocket, and I'd be wearing a blindfold, so I didn't know, so I didn't do them a favor in Washington, Janks. And he's got doing all this shit. And then when they get to like why he approved arms sales to Saudi Arabia, while Saudi Arabia is committing daily war crimes in Yemen, he literally was like, well, I'll tell you what, Janks, I don't consider it collateral damage. That's a fake word. They're killing civilians over there. But I just thought that with U.S. training, it might actually help solve that problem. He literally went talking about high level, not like Photoshop, but you got to be honest. That's low level shit. if you could take, why was I one of 5 Democrats to vote for arms sales to Saudi Arabia while they're bombing hospitals in Yemen on a daily basis? Because I wanted higher level training for them, so they did less of that. That is the type of balls that guy must just be in. He just must be so spread out.
That's some galaxy brain shit.
That is fucking dope. I was like, wow, this is almost like 1980s like sitcom smarm coming off of that dude.
I mean, I guess what I was getting at with my question was, especially around the teacher strikes, you saw a lot of finger wagging from certain centrist liberals saying like, oh, these people are in red states. They get what they deserve. Why are they voting against their own interests? It's their fault. But like, that's implying that they have a chance to vote for their interests, which is not a given.
That's also implying that people, well, he will occasionally defend safety net stuff, which is part of how he stayed there. But at the same time, it's also claiming that people are static, and they're not. And it's also claiming like so many things misalign. One of the leaders in West Virginia on that strike was a Democrat who endorsed Trump. Like, sorry, politics is usually a lot more complicated than your Twitter feed.
Yeah, it goes a lot of other places that people don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of things that people don't understand, we're going to have a little debate here. There's a fun interpretation of this, which is that this is probably the only thing besides Macron's handshake that he's ever done that's cool. Or there's a more benign, like he just is mistranslating in his head, which is probably what happened. But this is Emmanuel Macron with Australia's prime minister. And I mean, if we wanted to be uncharitable, we could say that he is becoming very influenced by hanging out and hugging and kissing and rubbing with Donald Trump so much.
But I wanted to thank you for your welcome. Thank you and your delicious wife for your warm welcome. It's the perfect organization of this trip. Thanks to you and Lucy. Thank you very much.
That's awesome.
The horror.
All right, let's go around the horn before we do the obvious French translation cuck jokes. Is this intentional? Did he kind of inadvertently say, like, I would like to bang your wife, how you say? Or is this just like he meant to say, like, you know, your wife is radiant or something, and it came out bad in English? We'll start with Brendan. Your guess on this. Are we going fun or benign?
You know, I think this is like a great moment in Macron's like hubris getting the best of him. In that
very
he's
fun
doing
interpretation.
You know, he's going around the world speaking English, and he's 40 years old, and he loves older women. So he's really trying to play both sides of the coin.
So you're saying not a mistranslation. You're saying Macron was up there and he's like, I think today I said that I want to, how you say, maybe give it without a condom to a strong wife?
I'm not saying that, but I am saying that maybe he knows he messed up, but he might double down on it because, you know, he thinks he's the coolest. Obama 2.0, French Obama.
He's technocrat Trump.
But do you think he did it on purpose? Or
not,
was it like a mistranslation?
That's right. It's kind of a second.
I think he messed up at first, and now he's going to own it as he did do it on purpose.
Suck it. Jamie, mistranslation or on purpose?
You know, I'm going to come down somewhere in the middle. They say when you gaze into the abyss also gazes back into you. And
that's
I think
my boy.
That's
delicious.
What's going on with Macron right now.
Look at the way.
Like I do like.
You thought you were Obama 2.0, but you're my creation.
I do think it was a mistake, but I don't think it was a translation mistake. Let's just say that.
Okay, and
I think Trump's smarm is like probably sexually transmitted through all the contact that they've had.
I mean, when you travel,
literally nauseating.
When you travel through the sort of alpha echelons, I mean, this is sort of normal behavior.
Yeah.
Macron said exactly what he meant.
So you think he's flying too close to the sun here, basically?
No, I think he's doing exactly what you know is required of the moment, and this goes. This is sort of French diplomacy.
What is required of the moment?
Yeah, this is perfectly intentional.
Well, this is 2018. A different era. I must go and...
I learned this trick from Talleyrand. I'm going to flirt with you. I'm going to hit on your wife to your face.
Well, how
give me what I want.
first, I think there is an opportunity for bilateral relations, and then
If you know
number
what I
two,
mean.
there is also an opportunity for a bilateral relations. If you know what I'm saying, your wife is looking at me.
Some perpendicular relations.
Yeah, so your wife, forgive me, my English is bad, but it looks like she gives a great brain, and. H. John Benjamin had a show that was very obscure, home movies. Very few people see, but the T-shirts say, "Your mouth would look better with my penis in it," and so this is what I'm trying to say to your wife. No.
Wow, that's some real 20-dimensional chess right there.
It's beautiful to be in Sydney, and can your wife disrobe for me? How you say?
Yeah, maybe she will.
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, he is
a snack.
France and Australia have never been closer.
I literally am inside the relation.
I mean, fuck Macron always, but also fuck Macron.
Wow.
Just throwing it out there.
All right. Fair enough.
Sam's gonna be so mad when he gets back, dropping F-bombs all over the place.
I know there have been an unusual amount of F-bombs on today's show. You're calling from a 904 area code. Don't swear. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Can you hear me?
Yep. What's up?
All right. Hey, it's James from Jacksonville. I just wanted to say I'm upset with Sam's anti-Semitism. You know, he should be blindly supporting Israel, and I'm actually offended. that he
Sure.
isn't.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Have
I
to
think
point that out. You know,
that's a fair
true
point.
American should suckle the teeth of Netanyahu. I think.
Now I'm offended by that image. Jesus, that's disgusting.
All right. No,
All right.
yeah,
You have
I
anything
just
else? Yeah, you got anything else, buddy?
One thing. Do you think that the military is going to push harder against the free college thing as that gains more steam?
Because they incentivize people to join through offering free college as a benefit.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
that's
know, but
interesting.
I don't exactly know. If
I mean, my read, to be honest
What
with
do
you.
they do?
What do you mean?
Like to slow the roll? Like how do they? how
Yeah,
does the
they
military-
can't. They can't like
Yeah, that's
lobby.
what I'm
They
wondering.
can't. They
Like,
can't
do
do
they
it.
have any way to do that?
I don't think so.
I
I think
think
also to
someone
be,
would do it on behalf of the military.
well, they can't like get a PR firm and like wash money through to do like that.
No,
they
I just
couldn't
mean
do.
like conservative politicians who agree with this kind of economic draft. That's
Yeah,
going
but
on.
they wouldn't do it because of the
Yeah, the military is not the main obstacle.
Yeah, the military is definitely not the main obstacle. Also, for what it's worth, like if you like the vision that a lot of these people have, like including like we talked about Rumsfeld the other day, and it was been contradicted with things like invading Iraq, but they envision a technologically enabled, highly trained and highly specialized, like their plans and their like mapping of military strategy does not involve like a huge amount of active troops. Not to say that they don't need troops and that isn't an important thing, but like I mean, we talked about the draft the other day. Like the military does not want a draft; they're strongly opposed to one.
Yeah, because it gets people more engaged in the anti-war movement.
That's part of it, but it's also like strategic. Like they want people there who are professionally engaged in what they do, and also a lot of U.S. military activity now. I mean, you talk about less engagement in the anti-war movement because of people only. That's true, but like mostly what they do is, I mean, like drone warfare and things like that don't even involve like active troop presence. So like the future of military conflict and how to rein in military is going to have a lot more to do with like private security services, technological warfare, JSOC units that are outside of oversight. Like that's where we're going. So as far as free college goes, I mean, military is not a big impediment to that. But I appreciate the call, man. Thanks. What's up?
Oh, I said we also don't know what this administration is planning right now.
We don't know that, but there's no reason to think that even the most hawkish and demented, which they are, has a different view of wanting like a different military design that would involve just like more mass troop recruitments, basically.
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing with Iraq, right? Or did you already say that?
Even with Iraq, which was contradicted, they thought they could do it with far less troops,
Right, exactly.
than traditional people. And the plans of like reinventing military stuff and future planning was all like drone war, elite units, and reason that they step out of some arms control treaties is even like small scale tactical nuclear weapons, which is obviously totally terrifying. I'm not making a ethical case for this stuff. It's petrifying, but I'm just saying like that's not where their thinking is going. That's not what they're planning. You're calling from a 410 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi. Oh my gosh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. My name is Leslie. I'm from Penn State. I'm a first-time caller. Hi.
Hey, Leslie, how you doing? Thanks for calling.
Two things. One, with the whole Macron thing, I now have the horrific image of Macron and the PM of Australia Eiffel Towering the PM's wife. So that's horrific. Thanks for that.
That's nice. Quite a first time call you got there. I like that. I like when people extrapolate even like I'm making fucked up jokes and they went a place that I didn't even go. All right. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, honey,
Okay.
honey, you have no idea. It's bad. Anyway.
Okay, I like it. What's next?
Second, I just wanted to say I'm in college, obviously, so I just wanted to say thank y'all to the entire crew because the report and TMBS have got me through a really tough semester, and
awesome.
I love listening to it when I'm at work or I'm studying. Jamie especially has inspired me to like kind of get into activism more, so I'm a bit of a fledgling activist.
What are you doing? What kind of activism are you doing? That's awesome.
So I'm the founding member of a club on my campus called the United Socialists. Can I plug our Twitter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Twitter is at PSU Socialists, United Socialists of Penn State.
Awesome.
And we're building a pan-left coalition of people who've sort of been inspired by the labor movement. We're working with graduate students who are trying to unionize. They failed, unfortunately. People inspired by Bernie Sanders, people interested in left politics, stuff like that. And we're only a year old, but it's been going pretty well. I got my first hit piece written about me by the conservative students, so that was fun.
Oh, sweet.
Nice.
Congratulations. So let me hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Well done. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Yeah. I was like, we were doing a protest in solidarity against, there was a couple campuses across Pennsylvania that were doing it against white supremacist groups that have come up on campus.
Right.
And I gave a speech that was basically saying these right-wing groups like College Republicans and Turning Point, they're semi-big on campus, and the Students for Trump, they have to take a more active role in working with us to eliminate them, because some of them, they sort of run in the same circles as much as they don't want to admit that.
Of course,
And they'll be
100%.
like, they're like, how dare you assassinate my character? Rah, rah, rah. And like, dude, if you hang out with the white supremacists, people are going to think you may be down with that. So,
Right.
So I gave a speech. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're great. Go ahead.
I gave a speech, and all they could basically do, because they couldn't really counter me ideologically, was just like make a bunch of fat jokes and post a bunch of unflattering pictures. So
that's what they do.
Yeah, that was great.
That's all they got.
That's their lane.
But,
That's their lane.
yeah. I figure if you don't have the cojones to oppose somebody based on any sort of ideology or ideas, and you just sort of like attack them for something they can't change, like their appearance or their race or whatever, I just figure you're intellectually just bankrupt.
That's totally true. I do attack Jack Posobiec for looking like a stock image, though. So I just want to be transparent.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you.
Thanks
guys
so
go,
much
'cause
for
I
the
know
call.
You have a lot of people. Left is best.
Left is
Bernie
best.
2020. Love y'all.
Oh, rock on.
Love you back. Thank you. That's an awesome call.
Hell yeah.
People out doing it. You're calling from a 717 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Danny from PA.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. I guess I'm just going to start this preface. The other day, I was talking with a friend, sort of a social democrat, Bernie-crat type person, about drug policy. Not on drugs, for the record. So we were talking about it, and I guess what I'm sort of wondering is, I have my own opinions, but what do you think should be the progressive approach to drugs? And just to break it down a bit, should we, as leftists, actively seek to discourage drug use on a societal level to decrease it overall? And following that, what would be
what kind of drug use are you talking about?
Well, we were specific. I guess we were talking generally too. But hard drugs mostly.
Well, I mean, okay, you got a second part? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just like if we're to accept like it should be discouraged, what would be the best approach to do that? Should it be, decrim, but still have punishments in place for producers, for traffickers,
well,
like that? Or should
maybe
it be
maybe potentially with like certain types of traffickers, but that might be because of other activities that you might get involved with. But definitely not for any single person using. No, 100% no. And I also think, I'm telling you, giving you my answer, definitely not totally decriminalized for on a use end. Now, I also think it's worth really looking at Johan Hari's book. What's it called again, Matt?
Chasing the Scream.
Chasing the Scream, because I think that there are definite, at least from that book, and I could certainly have experienced and seen this anecdotally. There are some people that I think, they have very specific and very challenging and real addiction issues, which they need medical, psychiatric, every type of support. But a lot of other addiction and drug abuse, at least according to that viewpoint, is explained by social context. So the rat study was really interesting. So the old rat study was that
with the opioids.
Well, I'll just explain it to people. So that one side of the funnel, like the rat is in this cage where there's nothing to do. There's no, you can't, there's nothing to play with. It was just a barren cage. And one funnel had water. The other one, I think, actually, I didn't think it was opioid. I thought it was a cocaine something. I thought it was a cocaine.
I think it was cocaine.
Yeah, cocaine, right? So the rat always hit the cocaine one, and then they redid the study.
Yeah, because the rat was isolated and it had nothing to fucking do.
Exactly, and they updated the study, and they gave him like a rat paradise, and he'd
hang out with other rats.
Yeah, and he stopped and
run around in tunnels.
And the things decreased significantly.
Like above.
So I guess I just think the answer is there.
You address the societal problems. It's not a police issue.
Yeah, it's not a police issue. It's a societal issue. And I'm not a big. I mean, look. I guess the other thing, as far as like quote unquote discouraging or not discouraging people, like I'm not gonna I'm not going to like get into my own personal whatever, but I think that there's obviously distinctions between these things. And I think on one hand, it's silly, to lie, look, I don't know, snorting cocaine is not healthy for your heart. Okay. That's objective reality, but I'm not in the business of bothering other people about their sort of personal habits. I actually have a problem on a consumption level. I think especially if anybody's telling you oh, I'm a vegetarian or something because of X, Y, and Z, and they do Coke, you should look at that supply chain. Get a little bit real about that. But that being said, it's a social policy, like everything else. It's not about encouraging or discouraging one way or another, in my view.
Oh yeah, that was the point that I made to him, pointing specifically to what happened in Portugal, where just across the board everything was decriminalized and it was treated not as a criminal issue, but as a social health issue, where there were rehabilitation programs and. I guess less so in the case of Portugal, that they had a robust economic redistribution system, or even further, just a radical democratization process elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'm even okay with. I'm even okay with things like cutting them out of like the advertising market and stuff like that. Like I don't care that we don't let certain things.
I'm
advertise.
down with cutting out I'm totally like don't advertise candy to kids on Saturday Cartoon Market. I don't have any I don't care about any of that. I'm totally for banning and highly regulating certain types of advertising. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, this will be when it becomes legal. It will be corporate. That's the learn. That's
the outcomes are so much better with decriminalization and harm reduction than they are with the American carceral approach. It's not even funny. I mean, I'm working on an article about this right now, actually, and it's crazy that we're still pursuing such a thoroughly discredited policy that's not driven by the outcomes that we're going to get. It's driven purely by this.
And by the way, I just want to say, I just want to also clarify too. I just want to clarify too that when I talk about traffickers, I'm not talking about I would include street level whatever that also should be totally decriminalized and people's criminal records should be cleaned and expunged. I'm saying that there might be people that as part of a process literally ran like the Zetas and have killed literally thousands of people and beheaded people on the streets and put videos of it. And if you're concerned about ISIS, look at some of the cartel wars going on, right? That's what I meant by there's at that level of trafficking, there's other activities involved.
Yeah, but that's a side effect of criminalization.
No, I agree with that, but I just wanted to clarify when I said maybe for certain types of trafficking, I wasn't talking about somebody selling a dime bag on the street. I don't care about that. That should be decriminalized 100% too.
And look, I'm pro pleasure.
Said your mom.
Oh no!
Boom.
Got me. The socialist utopia that I envision, people can do what they want, and people, yeah, sure. People have been altering their consciousness for thousands of years, since the dawn of humanity, and for all different sorts of reasons, and that's not going to change. And I really believe that marijuana and psychedelics are not bad at all. They're actually medicine.
No.
I joke about it, but they are. So
I have personal experience that proves that.
So
have you started smoking during the call, sir? Because you've gotten a lot more relaxed as the calls progressed.
Right.
I definitely would oppose those Spartan revolutionaries who think that you should never do anything fun because that's just an opiate of the masses. Fuck you. If I can't have fun, what are we doing this for?
I think as long as you look cool and you present well, it's fine.
Right, and just one last thing, just really quick. Thank you so much for following.
What?
You followed me on Instagram. That was really big. Allah bless you, brother.
Oh, okay. You're welcome, man.
I'm going to become your favorite tanky one day. So help me God.
Hell yeah.
One day you're just going to wake up and you'll be like, oh shit, to join the Shining Path.
Are you?
Well, the Shining Path. The Shining Path is. I'm down. I'm down with the Shining Path.
Are you auditioning to be the new Joseph Ballin? Is that what's going on?
No, he's already much better. He's already better. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. You're calling. I'm just hanging up on that person. I'm sorry. You can't have that. That's fucked up. You're calling from a 509 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Merry Christmas, motherfuckers.
The great Ronald Reagan.
Say it.
Thank you for calling on a day I'm hosting. And I miss you on TMBS. Oh, what do you want me to say? Say what? Merry Christmas.
Say Merry Christmas.
Merry.
Do you feel that?
I feel it.
It feels so good to say it.
Doesn't it?
It's
like a rush.
Trump named today the National Day of Prayer, and he was in the Rose Garden bragging about how now people can say Christmas. So I just wanted to say it.
That.
And
you can do it.
Yeah, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
So you know the story of how Bill Clinton supposedly encouraged Donald Trump to run for president?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you know if that's been confirmed? First of all, and second of all, are we to understand that he was sort of trolling, or is there an alternative reading that Bill Clinton actually thought Donald Trump, would be a good candidate?
My understanding is I think that story is true. And the way I read it is more just like the way Bill Clinton would talk to basically anybody. And it's just like, they used to be buddies, and Donald Trump called them up, and they're bullshitters, and Bill probably was just like, yeah, blah, 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 you should whatever. I think it's kind of like...
Someone's got to beat my wife.
Yeah, well, that's the I'm sure to the extent if there was any strategic, whatever, I'm sure it was that he thought Trump would be weak. But my impression was probably just thought like, sure, fuck it, dude. Like, go for it. You won't win. That's my honest interpretation.
I got to say, my favorite Trump moment was the clip that you guys played the other day where he was talking to with the president of Nigeria, who, when he was asked about the shithole country comment, the president of Nigeria did fake news.
Right.
That was his response.
Right.
We can't really trust the media. And Trump was like, no, I did that shit.
Wasn't that amazing?
Was me. I said that.
The guy literally
So
did
good.
the perfect, put it to bed, and Trump was just like, exactly. And he gets what I meant by it.
Oh, man. I've got one last question, and I'll let you guys go.
No, please.
As somebody who grew up very conservative, around a lot of conservative people, I still find myself shocked. This morning I was listening to AM radio, the local station, and their whole response to this thing that's going on is, why should we care? Like, who gives a
Which
fuck,
thing?
right?
Which thing? The Rudy Giuliani thing?
Yeah, he paid a porn star in the waning days of the election to keep his affair under wraps. It just doesn't matter. And I guess it's weird for me, having grown up around those people who were so sanctimonious and self-righteous,
right,
and had all these, it turns out to be pretend values, now say that this is a big, it doesn't matter as long as the stock market is good, basically. And so I guess my question is whether or not any of you guys find that surprising.
No.
And my observation would be, I guess, I always thought that Trump won in large part because of the worship of money and the rich, and this is, I think, maybe the final manifestation of that people are expressing this idea that as long as my portfolio is doing fine, literally nothing else matters.
What do you think about that? Do you even care?
I think that's true.
Exactly.
So I want to say I think you're 100% right, and I also want to. I'm not drawing a false equivalency here because it is different, but I do think there is a certain, how many people were totally freaked out by like mass violations of civil liberties and global killer robots under Bush, and then when Obama did it, it was fine, and now they're scared again. I mean, there is some kind of across the board team identity thinking that is just, I don't think it's not particularly American. It seems to be sort of human, unfortunately. But does it surprise me? Not at all. Not remotely. No. Does it surprise anybody?
I'm gonna go with no.
Yeah.
I can sympathize with Reagan's point, though. I mean, I went to Catholic high school, and I have friends who are still kind of blown away by the fact that these people could abandon things so quickly in the name of the holy stock market and all that. So I understand it.
Well, I think even my read, though, of evangelicals may be different than Mormons, though, is that in the evangelical world, there's actually a lot more kind of there's a lot of emphasis on flawed vessels being the vehicle for, I actually think in certain parts of the Christian world, there is a weird, on one hand, it's obviously totally sanctimonious and in some ways even more horrible because it really is just simply a question of personal belief. But there's actually a lot of those narratives you hear all the time, oh, before I had Jesus, nobody was worse than me. And I'm a sinner every day. Redemption. And I start, and I think that is there a lot, both because, it's true of all of us and also because it's a good, it's a good out when you want to run interference for somebody who's implementing your political and economic agenda, which is, what things are about. in my opinion.
Right. Hey, I got one more thing to say.
Yep.
And then I got to jump. I want to put this Lopaka thing to rest. I don't know where this came from. I have a lot of respect for him. People are speculating, whatever, who could beat the other person in a fight. I don't care. I love Chris. And a lot of the other things that people are saying about him are totally unfair. Like about his smell, for example, people are saying he smells like onion soup, like that's sort of his natural body odor. And most of these people have probably never even been close enough to him to smell what he smells like. I mean, we can't know for sure. Like, it could be true, but I just think it's unfair that people are, I'm reading this stuff all over the place, and I think people need to, let him live his life, and and people who have those issues, frankly, like can't control them, right? So it's
so
not
like
his
if
fault.
he had those issues, he couldn't control them, is what you're trying to say.
Right, and I just think if I were to have that problem, I would hope that people would be compassionate towards me and understanding. And so I don't know if he has that particular issue, but a lot of people are saying it, and it seems totally unfair. So.
Everyone knows that, and it almost wouldn't even have to be said.
Thank you. Thanks for all ringing. That's so good. You're calling from a 619 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Ricky. I'm calling from Cambridge.
Hey, Ricky, what's going on?
So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on having like a right-left-wing alliance in terms of getting speakers on campus that are provocative, because, so a little context, at my university there's a group called the Open Campus Initiative, which brings like just the worst people. Like it brought Charles Murray this year.
Right.
I think Jordan Peterson last year before he was big. This was before I was on campus.
Yeah.
But there seems to be like a huge lack of like actual left-wing thinkers, and our university blew off Chelsea Manning after they invited her.
You can say that you go to
fellow,
Harvard.
and-
It's okay. We won't judge you. We won't judge
Okay, cool.
you. Yeah.
So they blew off Harvard. They bring in like really shitty people, like Sean Spicer, like all these.
Well, those are kind of. I mean,
terrible
those are you're kind of conflating slightly two different issues there. So that was just embarrassing on the college's end.
Yeah, no, it's very embarrassing.
Right, and so
Yeah.
that they would have people like Sean Spicer at the Kennedy School and not Chelsea Manning. So that was a major embarrassment on Harvard's part, and you ought to be ashamed to be a member of the Harvard community. No, I'm just kidding, but the second point, I guess my point is that I think your perspective has validity in an ideal world, in an ideal world, in the sense that if any of these debates and arguments were remotely genuine, you could potentially team up and say, oh, it would be interesting to have an open forum with, I don't know. It's actually.
Well, I guess my idea of teaming up is taking over. Like, because I agree. Like, they actually don't believe in open discussion. They just want to have like the worst fucking people.
But here's my thing: is I don't know
like,
what you would take over, because I'm actually sure at Harvard you have a lot more flexibility in terms of access to certain kinds of resources and potential of bringing speakers, and let me just say available. But I think that you like. Most of these right-wing speakers are going to campuses across the country. They're not paid by departments. They're not brought in by professors. They're sponsored by student groups that are slush funds for far-right interest groups. So that's the dynamic. You have money coming in, almost professionally funded student groups that can pay the speaking fees for far-right propagandists. So my only critique has ever been like, I don't think that you should call to deplatform people, because I don't think that that's a good look. I don't think it's strategic. And I think if you're going to go there, as I say, like, I think you should try to, embarrass them and play it well. Like the woman who called yesterday, it sounded like she handled Dave Rubin perfectly. I think it was great. You know, don't give them a video of you freaking out to spread around, is what I'm saying. Because I'm sorry, I don't mean to be judgmental, but this is politics. We actually have to think about these things.
That's why they're going.
That's precisely. That's exactly what they're looking for. That's the reason we even know who. That's the reason Ben Shapiro isn't like some oddity who, you know, wrote books about not masturbating or whatever when he was a teenager. So, but I think that like so. My thing would be that maybe, but at the same time, if you had ability to access resources to bring in like actual left speakers, then just do that. It's never going to come through those channels because, as you know, all of those campus initiatives are fundamentally dishonest, and they're just using that as a frame to generate controversy to bring in right-wing hacks. So that's the game. You already know it. So, you know, if there's a lane to bring in left speakers and you can make the case, you know, that's where you can do, not for them, but maybe for administrators, you could do a little bit of buy your logic stuff. Yeah. But in general, as far as those organizations, you're not going to because they're right-wing, you know, slush funds, basically.
Yeah, they're not there because they want debate. They're there because they're funded, because the right-wingers want to set the agenda of discourse at these places.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And their use of free speech is totally disingenuous.
Exactly.
But, you know, it might be fun to call them on their bluff one of these days. Like,
I'm for that.
You guys
I think
like free speech? Let's bring Adolf Reed to campus.
Right.
Talk about socialism.
There you go. Why don't you? Yeah, exactly.
But they're not going to help you with that.
Yeah, but they're
gotta do it
never
yourself.
exactly. They're gonna you know they're gonna pivot back to the how many gay people in the room material.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, so they definitely, to give them credit where credit is due, they try after Chelsea Manning got, you know, like just awfully disinvited by the Kennedy School.
Right.
They did try to bring her back, but I feel like they did that partially because they knew she would say no.
Wait, you mean now are we back to the Kennedy School, or now we're back to the Kennedy School?
So okay, so there's
because that's a slightly different issue.
Initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Open Campus Initiative is like the college-run organization, which is like by students. And when the Kennedy School disinvited her, they said, "Okay, we'll try to bring her back."
Oh well, that's smart of them. That's good. That's good tactical. You know,
Exactly.
if it was a specific instance where they said, but I don't know, you need to partner with them to do that. Like I'd say, like if they wanted to score a little point, and you were exactly aware of why they were doing it and what the actual motivation was, but they brought Chelsea Manning, cool. And by the way, I would use, especially because of who it was sponsored by, and in no way taking away from the crimes that she revealed and the torture she endured, but I would probably, that would exactly be the forum where I would use an opportunity to be like, so why the fuck are you hanging out with Mike Cernovich? Right? Like, that's how I would play it.
Yeah. All right.
Appreciate the call, man. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I just want to warn everybody, I'm sorry, we are not going to get to all calls. I apologize. You're calling from a 201 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
What's up, Mikey? It's Mooch.
The Mooch.
How you living?
I'm living well. How are you?
Good. You know, before I get to why I'm calling, you know, I got to jump in on this thing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, I mean, you know I love her.
Yes,
you know?
I do.
I mean, that broad don't say nothing. She don't say nothing. You know, I think she's perfect. You know, we have to keep her perfect. She is perfect.
Right.
But you know what? The makeup gets out of control. You know, I'm starting to think that she's doing like a character, like a pro wrestling villain or something. I mean, what she's got on her eyes, it looks like something the Roadrunner would paint on the side of a mountain. But the reason I'm calling is, you know, you're referring before to the language being used in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, you know, the use of the word cuck, it's vulgar, but it's also excessive. And may I offer an alternative?
Uh-huh.
Yes. So like we say in Italiano, we say cornuto.
Cornuto.
If I could use it in a sentence?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I use it in a sentence?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Right. I'm not saying that Steve Mnuchin is a cornuto, but him and his wife have been spending a lot of evenings with that Munyan Ben Carson. If we're gonna use it as a sentence.
So
Wait,
it's
so
a
you're
precise
saying
synonym, is what you're saying.
Wait. So this is the Italian word for cuck, and you're suggesting that Ben Carson is cucking Steve Mnuchin's wife? Mooch?
Didn't I start my sentence by saying I'm not saying that?
You did. To be fair, you did. I apologize.
So
just
it's
my
just-
journalistic instincts. I'm sorry.
It's just as racially problematic in
But you know what?
Italian, is
I
what you're
mean-
telling us.
But and Jamie has a point too. I mean, we got to be careful about king shaming. I mean, everybody's got their thing. The president likes pee-pee. Mnuchin likes whatever. I personally like having mozzarella balls thrown in my naked belly by Russian hookers. Everybody's got their thing.
Wait, you like having
And,
mozzarella balls thrown at your naked body by Russian hookers? Do they have to be Russian?
And that's my right. I prefer they be Russian. I don't like it when they can talk to me.
Right. Fair enough.
But that's either, because we all have to, everybody's different and we have to embrace those differences. And if I could paraphrase the great Governor Andrew Cuomo,
yes.
As a New Yorker, I am a Mick. I am a Gook. I am a Wop. I'm a stick. I'm a fruit. I'm a heap. I'm a tranny. I am a spook. I'm a wetback. I'm a giddy.
All right, Mooch. I think we got it. You've.
I'm a cripple.
Okay, thank you.
Very.
I'm an Arab.
It's still going.
Very woke, the Mooch, these days.
Oh, my God. It's not even letting me hang up on him. It's like the Mooch took over this call system.
It takes all kinds to make a world.
That was well done. You're calling from a 518 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is it me?
Yes, it is you.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, it is. It's Tom from Port. You all right?
I'm all right. What's on your mind?
Oh, you can hear me. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Our government voter ID laws in the UK and the right-wing reaction to Kanye West. What should I start with first?
Well, we only have time for one, so why don't you tell us about? We've hit the Kanye thing a lot. What is going on with the ID laws in the UK?
Okay, so I called in previously regarding the local elections. They're actually happening today.
Okay.
So what the government have been doing is that they're trialing these voter ID laws. They got made so in these 5 boroughs you got to bring either your passport or your polling card, depends on where the place is. Now, the thing is, in these 5 boroughs, there's been no previous cases of voter fraud at all. It's just people just go in. You don't need to bring a polling card. Just turn up, tell your name and address, and you just vote.
Right.
There's been no real record of fraud and whatnot, but the government decided to bring it in anyway.
So basically, the Tory government is doing voter suppression, just like the Republicans are in the United States. They're doing their own voter ID laws, basically.
Yeah, more or less. I think what makes it particularly disingenuous is that the whole it was right after the whole Windrush scandal, after the Tories have been trying to deport all these people who came in from the Commonwealth countries between 1948 and 71 in order to address some like post World War II like workers shortage. So there was a whole mess going on last week. And now people trying to get these papers, but they can't for whatever reason, so they're trying to be deported. And now this whole voter ID law thing is coming just at the right time. So, yeah.
I think I'll definitely cover the Windrush generation more. And actually, there was a Linton Kwesi Johnson.
Awful.
I'll be covering that more.
I'm scared of it.
Thanks so much for the call, man. I appreciate it, but I'll follow up. I'll follow up on Windrush for sure. All right, the final call of the day before we race through the IMs. You're calling from a 614 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Mike. This is Jason from Columbus. How are you?
Hey, good. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm that guy that called you about McCain a little while ago. Remember? Do you remember that? Remember when we were talking about John McCain, like not wishing death on him and stuff? Remember
I don't
that?
think I ever said I
Long
wish
time ago.
death on him, but fair. I think I might have said that when he dies, I will not be excessively upset. But I have not.
Everyone knows that, and it almost wouldn't even have to be said.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know,
Thank you.
And in a weird way, I sort of share that point of view with you because I've had a love-hate relationship with McCain for a while, and you know, me being a military vet, I don't want to see any harm come to fellow veterans.
Yeah, I want to be
like
really
that,
clear that I have definitely never said, and it almost doesn't even need to be said, that I have never wished him harm or death.
I mean, we don't have to wish him death.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen.
Oh no, I'm just trying to place context for Mike so he knows who he's talking to. That's all. I'm just trying to help out with that.
Context,
So,
like saying I
yeah.
said something I didn't say. I got you.
Yeah, oh, my
yeah.
bad, Mike, my bad. But like, we did have my bad, Mike. Easy, man. Don't hurt me.
No, you just gotta be careful with that kind of thing, man. You gotta be
because
careful.
I asked some clarifying questions
Okay,
about that back in the day, and you set me straight. You set me straight, and believe it or not, that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to call you today. Because
tell me,
I sent you a question about the military. About do you hate the military and stuff like that? And I wanted to give you props. I wanted to give you props for making some very clear points and giving me some stuff to think about, man. I too am an anti-imperialist. I don't like the fact that we are force projecting around the world and starting stupid wars that never end and so on and so forth. So, I just, I guess maybe today I just wanted to say, Mike, I think you're doing a good job. You give me stuff to think about. I agree with you about maybe, I'd say about 75% of the time, maybe even 80. But I just,
nobody should ever agree 100%, right?
Yeah, no, we're never. Yeah, that's. I mean, come on, we're human beings. That's never going to happen.
Exactly.
I do have one observation, and then I'll get off the phone because I would like to hear.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe your thoughts, or maybe you can wire up some guests to talk about this.
Okay.
But you guys recently have been talking about the draft era army versus the professional military.
Right.
And as somebody who's served, here, I'll say this real quick. Both my uncle and my father served in Vietnam. My father was drafted. My uncle volunteered.
Right.
My father didn't. Yeah. And I can, from some of the stories I've heard about the draft era army, the lack of professionalism that you get by people not wanting to be there, it's quite frightening. That's how you get My Lai massacres and, all kinds of ugly stuff. Because
I think that's partially true, but I think we also got My Lai because of a body count strategy that was driven from the top.
True.
So I think, but I do want to, but really quick, just a quick question before, and I think it is something worth talking about more, and you should definitely, if you haven't yet, you should listen to Sam's interview with Andrew Basovich. But
I did. That's why I'm calling. I did. It was great. It was awesome.
That what I said earlier is also true, that just like military planners are not focused on having a lot of the focus is on smaller teams, drone warfare, and things like that. So even from just a planning perspective, it's not increased troops based at all.
No, I agree with you. Donald Rumsfeld,
right.
At the beginning of the war, the quote war on terror, was beginning what was called a military transformation. And unless you're really studying, unless you read Jane's Intelligence, in group daily.
I do sometimes, but not daily. But I actually do.
Do you?
I do sometimes. I've read Jane's
I am
Defense.
impressed.
Yeah, there you go.
I am impressed. No, you're correct. Military transformation in 2001 was already going on. You were seeing transition to more of a special forces type of, I guess you could say, preview or view operational standpoint, and that started with Panama and Iran-Contra. The Nicaragua and all of that stuff that went into Iran-Contra.
Funneling money outside of Congress to the Contras, through Iranian weapons sales.
the Green Berets and the Rangers were eyeballs deep in that. So that the idea of smaller, stealthier, more lethal has been around. Well, actually, it's been around since the Green Berets of Vietnam and JFK's Special Operations Center and all that good stuff. But it really, really came into vogue with our covert war in Central America, some of our ongoing covert wars in Central America. And, the war on terror just brought it, to the forefront. It put it right out there in front of everybody's faces because, during the 90s, everybody was, dropping acid and listening to Kurt Cobain. Nobody was paying attention to little wars like Somalia or Bosnia or Haiti or things like that.
Well, that might be true.
So,
I don't know they were dropping. I don't know they were dropping acid though. But let me just say, I'll just say real quick though. I'll just reiterate. I mean, I am anti-imperialist. I'm anti most U.S. interventions, and I'm very concerned about particularly the type of conflicts you're talking about. But I will reiterate again, it has nothing to do. I'm also I'm kind of the only case I would ever make is the idea of normalizing the military. So I think that in the sense that I think it's very dysfunctional. Military hero worship is dangerous for any democracy. And then on the other hand, I think that any kind of posture, I don't view all. I just maybe people who work at ICE right now. It's really hard for me to see how you could work there at this moment. But I've known plenty of people in the military, and I do not in any way hold it. I don't hold people's professions against them. That's actually totally antithetical to where I'm coming from politically. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you.
I don't know if I would hold it against the people, but the effect of the military on people's politics is certainly incredibly negative. Like, Sean has a friend that he's known since high school, and he comes from a poor family. He didn't really have a lot of options. He was like a little punk kid, scumbag running around, and he joined the Navy and eventually saw some combat. And now he's a completely different guy. Like, he's a Trump supporter.
See, that's funny because I've definitely met people on the other end of things who, through military, first of all, that's how their pathway to why they support like socialized medicine, because everything's socialized in the military, and they're much more wary of military interventions. Oh. So I've seen the opposite. I guess
it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know about I don't know.
It was very disturbing for me to hear the way he was talking about certain groups of people, and I was like, God.
No doubt. NDA hold. This Stormy Daniels news seems easy to spin to me. Trump just needs to say that he paid her money to make her go away. And when you're rich as him, it's easier to settle with liars than fight the truth. Yeah, that's true. This has two advantages. It lets Trump brag about his wealth, and it plays to the idea that lawyers and women are unscrupulous liars. I don't see a downside here. Yeah, he should have taken that approach from the beginning. I think you're totally right about that. From a spin perspective. I think from an actual legal perspective, there could be some real problems there. Baked Nebraska, I just found out that my old professor and one of the most badass socialists I've ever known, Joel Koval, died on Monday. Rest in power. Tofaresh Shofar. Yes, Joe Koval, if I can find was a eco-socialist who taught at Bard. And I sat in on one of his classes once. So rest in peace.
All socialists should be eco-socialists.
Sierra, Michael, please can you remind people in the UK to go out and vote in today's elections? There's a real chance to overturn some local conservative council seats and send a loud message to the... What? Joe Colville died, yeah. He did the documentary, Sam just pointed out, The Real Inconvenient Truth. Check it out. Did you ever interview him, Sam?
No, I met him upstate.
Oh.
Oh, I may have interviewed him.
Sam may have interviewed him. But yeah, really, really interesting guy. And send a loud message to the Conservative Party in the country that people are voting for Corbyn's Labour. If you were in the UK, get out. Vote. Vote Labour. Left flank Fran, looking at Giuliani's body language, what are the chances that Giuliani wasn't yet prepared to admit payment on live television? What if he's just another liar who slipped into the truth on accident and had to go with the strong and wrong confidence in telegraphing his ultimate legal defense strategy? No, I think that is going to be their legal defense strategy, actually. I think it was awkward, but I don't think he did that by accident. But, I'm not in a sort of, it's guessing. But I think that will be their strategy.
Oh, there's a plan.
There's a major plan. Well, I mean, even if there was a plan, there's never a plan. Mitch from Houston, what is it with Trump guys and incriminating themselves on live TV? Well, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of stuff to keep track of. Sam's sound sheet. I have all sorts of new stuff to tell you if only you would listen. Sam's Tinder profile. And this is a request that I read again in the Sam voice. Hey, girl, swipe right. I'll invite you to a front row ticket to the Twitter war between Dave Rubin and I. Dave Rubin is wrong. Catalyst. Let's see. Oh, element. Laugh out. He's laughing. That shit makes your soul burn slow. Yes, it does. Ether. We're gonna do We got a whole other suite of products of Alex Jones diss tracks and beat selection. So don't worry about that. Ed Melvin, Bernie Sanders' Income Inequality show is great. Everyone should watch it. Very moving. They bring up the fact that 40% of homeless people have jobs. What further proof do you need that capitalism is broken? Indeed. Nick from Manitoba. Alex Jones is... am I crazy for thinking a combination of Alex Jones and the Ether instrumental was kind of hypnotic? No. Lastly, that U-Haul story just made me think of the Bush family doing a similar operation, and Jeb is the one who always gets crashed into. But Mom, shouldn't I be in the driver's seat?
And they don't tell Jeb when it's coming. It's
no, Jeb, it's better you stand in front of SUV right where Brother George is going to drive into.
He just gets rear-ended. He's like, God damn it, George.
God damn it. Oh, that's great. JJ Cool. Bernie is a socialist in the American sense, but in the global sense, he wouldn't be. He simply would be a capitalist who wants properly regulated economy and basic social programs. No, he is a democratic socialist in the European sense, which is totally centrist and totally makes accommodations of markets, but still, like, if he was in Britain, he's not as left as Corbyn, but he would not be in the right of the Labour Party. He's legitimately a democratic socialist.
It's kind of splitting hairs, but I would call him a social democrat more than that. But these terms can be muddy sometimes.
Fair, yeah. No, but he's a social democrat. And I think especially in American context, that distinction does really matter. Okay, let me find the final.
Like, he's not a socialist, let's just say. He doesn't want to expropriate the means of production. Or maybe he wants to, but it's a secret.
Shh. Shut the fuck up. Quiet. Esha. Okay. You are committing the same transgression as CNN, giving free airtime to the right because they're cheap amusement while having a media blackout of progressives. You should have at least remembered Paula Jean's name. We are always going to have cheap amusement at Alex Jones, always and forever. I mean, really? You think, honestly, this show is a blackout of progressives? And I'm sorry that I forgot Paula Jean Swearigan's name. She's Joe Manchin's opponent. But, I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, it's great. I'm glad she's running. I would vote for her. I'm not going to spend an inordinate amount of time on something that I don't think is going to happen. Sorry. Unless it's, and those really marginal things that I would focus on, that is where I would tend away from electoral politics. So if it's like something that's really obscure but has a potentially very big social consequence, I'm more interested in movements than in, I think it's great. I'm glad he has a challenge. I hope she gives him some heat. Maybe we will cover it a little bit more. But, I'm sorry. I can't.
Fun half's gonna fun half.
Yeah, the fun half's the fun half, and I'm not in the business of pretending there's competitiveness where none exists.
It reminds me of the people who think like our YouTube content is the full show, like the clips we put on YouTube. Like, we do interviews every day.
Exactly. But we also silence progressives on those as well.
That's what I was brought on here for, actually.
To silence progressives.
Yeah.
That's you. Brendan's in charge of brooking, and we were like, the most important thing is that you silence progressives.
AEI.
Right. Yeah. And then on TMBS, of course, I have a strictly conservative audience, and Jamie does a ideology filter before Intifada, so that people are. She says, "Not to the left of Brookings" is the slogan of Intifada.
Yep, that's us.
All right, and the final I am of the day. Teacher Lauren, hey everyone, I'm back at work today, so not listening live. I just wanted to thank everyone again for all the love and support you've shown. Mom is starting another steroid treatment tomorrow for inflammation. Hopefully she responds because the radio station is the next step if she doesn't. Love you all. Thank you, Teacher Lauren. Thinking of you and your mom. We're back live tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the man